We discuss NAB Show 2025 highlights, including breakthroughs in global distribution for live programming, AI-powered interfaces, and built-in dialogue enhancements for TVs. Listen on.
Welcome to this week's edition of Inside the Stream. This is Will Richmond from Video News, and that was Colin Dixon from In-Screen Media there at the top, back from NAB Show in Las Vegas. Colin, how was the trip?
It was great. Las Vegas is already hotting up. On Tuesday, it got up to, I think, 85 degrees. I wasn't quite ready for it, but it was nice to be somewhere warm. And yes, the NAB show was going on this week, finished yesterday. We are recording this on Thursday. And we're going to talk a lot about what I saw there. But first, I think we've got some news, right?
Yes, we do. Go for it.
And my piece of news is that Google TV is going to require the people licensing its Google TV operating system to include a button on the remote that says free TV or live TV. It's not quite clear which it's going to be, but they're going to require a button that gives users direct access to that live TV view on Google TV. So this is a pretty good move from Google TV. I think will be very useful to consumers and help people discover what's going on in Google TV's free play. So big thumbs up for this. I think this will help the FAST market continue to grow. One of the things I've noticed, Will, in the data is that really the number of people using FAST on a regular basis has kind of plateaued at about 50%. And also another thing I've noticed is that the hours of viewing, at least according to Whirl, the hours of viewing has really plateaued over the last year or so. So this could help, I think, push that back into growth and get the FAST market growing a little. And I will just say one other thing. Google TV is actually one of the better devices for including the other free live TV, which is antenna television. So if you have an antenna hooked up to a Google TV, the live channels that you get through that are available directly in the live guide, and there's even a button in the live guide that can take you directly to the broadcast channel. So it's relatively easy to get to those channels. I think that all the smart TV manufacturers and the device manufacturers should include this button, but they should make sure that if somebody has an antenna hooked up, that when they press that, they get equal access to the broadcast channels as well as the FAST channels that are on that box. Now, I'm sure that that's not like what they want to do, and I'm going to be writing a piece about this very soon, because that's certainly not what happens on platforms like Samsung Tizen. But I would hope that the manufacturers would start to do that and give us full access to all of the free TV that's coming into that television.
Agreed. I think it feels like a valuable feature for all free TV, as you said. And Google TV doesn't have that much market share, at least here in the US. But, this type of feature may move the needle for them. It
may indeed. So anyway, what did you see?
Yeah, so moving on, caught my eye this week was that Apple TV Plus is being offered by Apple at a 70% discount per month until April 24th, a limited time offer from Apple, pricing Apple TV Plus for the first 3 months at $299 a month. And it caught my eye because I honestly can't remember the last time that Apple offered Apple TV Plus at a discount. It's certainly bundled in with other, services, mobile carriers and so forth at a discount or less. But I don't recall Apple doing it. And, we just had Jonathan Carson, of course, from Antenna on the podcast last week, and he was updating us and our listeners about the state of premium SVOD. And I found myself wondering, with Apple TV Plus's move here, are they trying for resubscribers, as Jonathan said, a critical part of the market, people who have dropped out over the last 6 to 12 months. Are they going for new subscribers? Not really clear. They certainly have been making some good headlines recently with some of their marquee programming, like the follow-up season of Severance and The Studio, and of course Ted Lasso continues to be very popular. So they have programming that people are interested in, but maybe they needed an extra push from a discounting promotional perspective. So be very interesting to watch. Of course, I read one piece that Apple has been one of the companies affected by this whole kind of tariffs, the ups and downs with tariffs this week, and maybe Apple was looking to inject a little excitement by offering Apple TV Plus as a discount. But that might be a little too far-fetched, given Apple TV Plus is, I think, a very, very, very small part of Apple's overall revenue.
Yeah, I do too. It's interesting that they're doing this, Will. One of the things that this reminds me of is just how difficult it is if you're a consumer to figure out what the best deal is on things these days. I've subscribed to Apple TV Plus, I think, forever. I find there's enough on there for it to remain interesting to me month in and month out, although I don't use it on a daily basis. That's absolutely true. But, for me, like, I found out only last month that I could have been getting Apple TV for free through T-Mobile. I didn't realize that was a benefit of my T-Mobile wireless subscription. I'm getting it free now through that, but it's just really difficult for people. But this sounds like a really good deal. I think if you haven't had Apple TV Plus in the past, you should definitely check it out, because I'm pretty sure you'll find one or two series on there that you are going to love. There's some really good quality content there.
Yeah, I agree. And Apple TV Plus actually had a price increase not that long ago also, didn't they?
That's right. It went from $6.99 to $9.99 last year, which was a pretty steep price increase, Will. I thought it was pretty steep, but it just sort of brings it in line with others in the market. And remember, they have no ads. There is no ad tier on Apple TV. So, bearing in mind that Disney is charging almost the same for Disney Plus with ads as Apple TV is charging without ads, I think it's a pretty good deal and a pretty good user experience.
Yeah, that price increase actually, I think, was back in late 23, not in 24.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, so it's actually been a little time, not that much, a little over about a year and a half or so, but relatively recent.
Yep.
So good. Well, let's move on, Colin. NAB Show, you were there, and there are a few observations that you wanted to make. I
do, and if people want to get more details about this, and there's actually several of the items that we're probably not going to get to, just come to my site, nscreenmedia.com, and look for the three postings on NAB, and you can catch up there on some of the other ones as well. The first one I want to feature, and one of the things that when I first started writing about over-the-top delivery and delivering over the internet with television content, I got all excited because there's this idea that when you're on the internet, you can reach the world. And unfortunately, that has turned out to be much more difficult to execute with quality, and you have to deliver with quality than you would have thought. And in fact, the only way to do it previously was you had to cobble together, a bunch of CDNs, make sure you had the right clients in place, have peering agreements in place. It was very, very complex to deliver with quality throughout the country, throughout the world. And well, that may be changing, because at the show, Alluvio, and we've talked about Alluvio before, Alluvio has created this content distribution fabric for global distribution. They have a new release called the Bangkok release. And this is really focused on live. It's really trying to solve the problem of delivering to the world live. And I spoke with Michelle Munson, the company's CEO and co-founder. And she explained how they've been working with the European Pro Club Rugby, EPCR. So this is not by any means a massive premium sport, but it is a sport that has passionate fans around the world. Well, EPCR launched on the Alluvia Fabric Bangkok release in December of 2024 and has so far delivered about 70,000, I think Michelle said it was about 70,000 hours of content. So again, not massive numbers, but decent numbers. But get this, Will, they've delivered that 70,000 hours to 106 countries. And Michelle showed me the sales in those countries, and some of them, there's just one or two sales of €7 or something like that. So not huge sales. You cannot do that profitably with basically any other solution, but you can with the Alluvia Fabric. And she says that in total, the fabric delivery is only 20% of the total revenue that EPCR has taken in. And if you're just thinking this is like bandwidth charges, it's not bandwidth charges. This is pretty much everything. Alluvia handles the billing, they handle the customer management, they handle the delivery, they manage the files, they deliver them. It's all secured with blockchain, so all the transactions are latched forever and secure. And to me, this just was finally we have something which delivers on the promise of the internet, which is delivering to the world with quality, security, and profitably. So I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. Did Michelle get into anything about future deals with other sports or how they're going to look to expand this release?
She didn't, but I can tell you, if you're involved with any minor sport, you should really check it out and see the models that she's put together here for smaller providers, because I really think there's an opportunity for smaller leagues like netball or lacrosse or polo or darts or pickleball. I knew you were going to say that.
Sure.
Pickleball. There's an opportunity here for them to reach a global audience. And what this really shows is that you can reach those people in even far-flung countries and do so and make a profit. So that's a very encouraging, and people should check it out.
Great. Okay, next, sounds like AI was a big topic of conversation there.
It was a big topic, Will, although I will say that the tenor of the conversation has changed. Before it was, like AI is going to rule the world, it's going to take over everything, and we're going to create content, it's going to run everything. And it was a bit more pragmatic at the show, which I was pretty happy about. And that was, of course, the theme of your AI conference earlier this year. We really did want to, focus on more practical applications. And there were two I wanted to talk about. One was Nice People at Work, which is a company that's helping video businesses leverage their data to improve their business. Well, they've come up with an AI-powered agent, which they're calling Nala, N-A-L-A, natural, which comes from natural language. The way Nala works is this. What Empore's solutions are doing is they're monitoring your network, monitoring your service, and monitoring its delivery. And when there are problems, it flags alarms. It sends you alarms. Well, sometimes it's actually pretty difficult to figure out what's going on from those alarms. Not sometimes, a lot of time. And what's going on here is Nala you can ask this thing, Nala, and it will sift through the alarms and the data, and it will do root cause analysis. And this is so valuable because, when you have things going wrong, you get these blizzards of alarms, and it's really difficult sometimes to figure out what's going on. And this thing is going to be watching all of those alarms and the data, and will come back to you with a series of things that they think are the root cause, whether it be a server out or a CDN's down or some other product failure has happened. It will dig out the root cause and tell you what to do about. And Gary Hunsberger, I spoke with, he's the company's GM of USA and Canada. He told me this, even novice users of the MPOR app suite can identify what needs to be fixed when something goes wrong. And this was a theme that was carried over into a conversation I had with Clean's CEO, Gilles Domartini, and Clean is spelled Cleeng. Now, this is a direct-to-consumer billing and subscription management company. So they've got their finger on the pulse of what's going on with your subscription management service from the point of view of money. And he took this even further. He said that his company has created an AI assistant to tell users how to use the tool to achieve tasks. And so one example he gave I really liked was, he said, if you're the CFO and you ask this tool, hey, what's going on with my service, then it will give you a financial summary. But if you're the COO, the Chief Operations Officer, it will give you a more operational focus response to your request. But it's even better than that, Will, because he went not one step further, but he's talking about evolving that tool in the very near future to do a heck of a lot more. And what he said was that the agent will be able to actually help you on a more strategic level. So you will be able to ask it questions like, hey, my growth is flat, how can I start to grow again? And it will go in and it will analyze what's going on with your service, compare it to peers, and come back with suggestions. So it might come back and say, hey, you don't have an app that's running on Roku. People in your business that are on Roku are getting about 15% of their revenue from that Roku platform. So it gives you the advice that maybe you want to implement Roku, but it goes even further. He says you'll be able to say things like, how do you implement Roku? And it will walk you through that. And then give me the best wording to describe my service in the Roku marketplace to get people to download it and buy it. And so his description really reinforced to me that something pretty interesting is going on here with AI, the AI agents. And they're really beginning to become a critical part of the interface to tools that people are using in the industry. And when you think about this, Will, if you take it to its logical conclusion, it could be that these agents actually become the tool. There really isn't a sort of basic interface that you go and click on. You just ask the agent what's going on. You ask the agent to work with you to diagnose the situation that you're in right now, and you actually end up not using the tool at all. And I think that's something that you can extend into way, way more domains than just tools that are helping people manage their subscription services. It could become the interface to the television, for example. You could be running that interface from your phone and just cast things to the TV, or tell the TV which apps to start and which content to play. So you really stop using those home pages on the TV and just talk to agents to figure it out. But so anyway, that was, I thought, a very, very interesting view of how AI is being used today to take people that are novices with tools and make them into experts. But it also hints at greater things to come tomorrow.
Yeah, that's an interesting future that you painted there, Colin. I'm not sure it's just ahead here, but possibly somewhere down the road. I know you had discussion with a real AI power user that you happen to bump into there. And for that person, it sounds like AI is pretty enmeshed in her life. And the idea of using AI rather than a TV interface could be sooner than you think.
Yeah. This was a Gen Z young lady who was making coffees at one of the booths, and she heard me chatting with somebody else about AI and AI agents and ChatGPT, and I was stunned. She just piped up that she subscribes to ChatGPT. It's her constant companion, and the things she was asking it, Will, were just very personal. Asking it to interpret dreams and with her bodily functions, and very, very personal. Her comment was, the more you use it, the better responses it gives, the better it knows you. And she had absolutely no problem with the idea of sharing that data with this tool. I this must be a generational thing. I certainly have a big problem with it, but she certainly didn't.
Well, that may be generational, Colin, for sure. But as we all know, AI, the application of AI is being spread into so many different places right now that the idea that it could potentially provide some sort of an interface for choosing the programs that you watch rather than having a conventional homepage, you could see that being the case for a certain segment of early adopters.
Yeah, absolutely. What that's done is actually that young lady has got me thinking I need to go back and look at a little bit more detail at ChatGPT and start using it in different ways to see what it can do for me. But anyway, maybe I should move on to my next item, which came from Xperi DTS. And this thing is called Clear Dialog. Now, I know that you've had this problem, because most people I've speak to have. It's really difficult hearing what the heck people are saying in movies and TV these days. And there seems to be like a couple of things that are going on here that's making it so difficult. One is that our demand for thin TVs means that you just can't get really beefy speakers into those TVs, and they're not even pointed at you. They're relying on being reflected off the wall of the room, or so that you can actually hear. So that's thing one. Thing two, the mixes are getting very, very dense in the audio. There's a lot of other sounds that are going on, particularly if you're not listening in full surround and you can't locate a voice in the mix properly. It becomes very difficult to hear what's going on then too. Well, Xperi DTS have come up with this thing they call Clear Dialog. And it's really two parts. The first part is it's an AI-based signal processing function to identify and separate out the voices. And the second thing is there's these set of weights which define what should be done once you have the voices, right? The cool thing is that this is being implemented at chip level. So what that means is if the TV manufacturer selects a chip solution that includes this, then it shouldn't be any more expensive and it shouldn't consume any more power than a TV that doesn't. So there really is zero cost if that chip solution where this is implemented is available. You'll be able to go in and turn this on in the interface just exactly the way you do other things like motion smoothing and stuff like that. And I talked with Samara Winterfield, who's VP of Product Strategy at Xperi, about this. And one of the things I wondered is, is it really okay for you to do this? Because, I know folks like Disney are pretty sensitive about what you're doing, what people are doing to their content in televisions. And she made the fair point that we already have motion smoothing, we already have picture enhancements going on, and nobody's upset with them, so there shouldn't be any problem with them doing this with the audio, because they're just trying to help people actually hear what's going on. So anyway, I think this Clear Dialog thing sounds great. There's a lot of us running out and buying sound bars so that we can hear what the heck is going on. And maybe with the TVs including this, it will compensate for the fact that we've got bad speakers and bad mixes. and allow us to hear the audio without having to rely on getting that sound bar to boost everything.
Yeah, well, what you're saying is certainly landing with me, because I'm one of those people who finds the audio, the native audio in large screens to be really, really hard to hear, and so have sound bars on my TVs. And also, most of the time, actually watch with closed captioning on as well. Which I find sort of relieves the pressure of having to really, really pay close attention to the audio, which can be distracting in and of itself. So I'm all for this type of innovation that you just described. And it sounds like maybe if they really catch on, it may be that sound bars go the way of the dodo.
Well, there's other reasons to have sound bars, I think. We do like rich sounding audio, and I don't think that clear dialogue is going to give you rich sounding audio. It's just going to help make it much easier to hear the voices. So I think for everyday viewing, something like clear dialogue is going to be absolutely appropriate. But if you're doing your surround sound movie, I think you're still going to want that sound bar and the surround sound system to make it sound really good. Or if you're listening to music, you're probably going to want to still have something additional to really beef up that sound.
All fair points. Well, Colin, as we wrap up here, I know you wanted to share some observations on the NAB show and the size, the declines in audience, what you experienced there, what you've experienced over the years as well.
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers of people that attended, and I mean, a lot of people came. 55,000 people attended NAB Show 2025, which is pretty great. People should be pretty happy about that, and I think that they were pretty happy about that. However, if you go back and look historically, 55,000 is not good news for NAB. Before COVID, the number of attendees in 2018 and 2019 was over 90,000 real. And of course, there was no NAB in 2020 and 2021. When it came back in 2022, I think there was 52,000 or something like that. And it did increase well into 2023 to 65,000. But in 24, it fell to 61,000. And now it's fallen another 10% to 55,000. And I tell you, walking the halls, it was pretty easy to get between booths. The booths seemed a lot more spread out than they have in years past. The noise wasn't too bad. I spent most of my time in West Hall, but I was also over in South Hall. And South Hall too seemed quite quiet. Booths that had been extremely busy in years past didn't really seem as busy as they have been. A Maggie booth is usually really, really crowded. It wasn't this year. It could be cyclical with, it's just a Maggie, but I didn't see a lot of booths being jam-packed. So could it be that the NAB show is fading along with the industry which it really serves? I think that might be definitely a factor, right?
Yeah, it may be. I mean, obviously the broadcast industry and the pay TV industries have declined, and NAB show caters to those audiences. So it may just be kind of right-sizing to the market size, the market's new size, I should say, compared to where it was 6 or 8 or 10 years ago. I certainly have many memories of NAB shows past that were, as you just said, packed to the gills, 90, 100,000 attendees. It sounds like it was far quieter this year.
It certainly felt that way, and I wasn't the only one that noticed, and certainly the numbers bear it out. And I've seen this before, Will. I used to attend a conference in London called the IPTV World Summit, which was really focused on telcos and pay TV, and that just faded away as that business really dried up, and vendors couldn't sell their equipment anymore, and so they weren't sponsoring and buying booths. Maybe we're seeing the same effect here. Certainly the decline in the pay TV world suggests, at least in the US market, it's half the size that it was back in 2014. That has to have an impact, doesn't it?
I suppose so. Well, do you want to end on any brighter note than that, Colin, or do you want to leave it? Feels like a Debbie Downer kind of.
Well, it is a bit of a Debbie
to
Downer.
Leave our audience with, but
it is a bit of a Debbie Downer. But I will say I was feeling a little bit ambivalent about going this year, but I did find I was really pleased to have gone. I had some great conversations. I've shared some of the really cool things that are still being done by providers into this industry. So, it's still worth checking out. You can still find those great stories and that great innovation at the show if you decide to go next year. I think it's April 18th. They've already said April 18th, 2026.
Well, that's a more uplifting message to leave our listeners with, Colin.
Indeed.
So thanks for the wrap up. And again, as you mentioned, Colin, you have several posts on nscreenmedia.com with more details about what you described, what you mentioned in today's podcast. So thanks for all that.
You're welcome.
And thanks for listening in, everybody. And we will be back again next week.
Inside the Stream is a production of In-Screen Media and Video News, all rights reserved.